We're live. What's up, Russ?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I am good. Like I said, pre-recording, we're very lucky to have you on the roster. If you remember, what year did you take the class? 2017 or 18?
2016.
16?
Winter of summer. The winter of 2016.
All right, so we were still in the UIC days. What were some memorable moments in that class?
I think one of the memorable moments when we were doing the, oh man, I forgot what it's called now. We had like the car outside, and then we had to strap each other into the...
Backboarding?
No, oh my gosh.
The KED?
Yes, the KED
Really?
device. Yeah. We had that, and it was cold, and it was, again, like, this class is just different from the other classes that I took. So the fact that we were like outside and doing like hands-on stuff, that was always like still surprising for me. It was nice. I did the Saturday, so it was an 8-hour class. And
that was our first and last Saturday class.
Was it?
Yeah, because of how long it was.
It was so rough.
Yeah. So once a week, every Saturday for 8 hours. That was brutal.
It was, but it was really fun because like I was only there for a day, per week, and then I could still work and stuff.
So were you were working at the time? I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Or you weren't a UIC student?
So I was done with college, and I had given up the dream of going to med school. So I was kind of like in that depression kind of phase.
What made you give it up so early? Because I feel like a lot of people were still navigating that when they do take a class like this.
Well, so I had already done the MCAT. I took it twice, actually. And then I know the scoring is different now. Whatever I had back in the day, the second time I took it, and it was even after the... I bought this like MCAT prep class thing. It was significantly better than my first, but it still wasn't enough to like even apply to med school. So that was really, really demotivating for me. So I started, my first job was, I was a barista at a bubble tea place.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So it was really fun, but it was like, I'm like, I guess I'm just going to do this forever. And I was still getting emails from UIC, even though I had already walked, I was done. And, it was just some random email from UIC saying there's an EMT course available. And I vaguely remember, because I don't really know what an EMT was, but I vaguely remember there was this guy in my physics class who was always also pre-med. And he's like, yeah, I'm an EMT on the side. It really helps me like, learn how to talk to patients. And I was like, whatever, just kind of one in one ear and out the other.
Sure.
But then I saw the email and I saw that, and I was like, you know what, let me try, maybe it'll get me motivated again for med school. And then I made my older sister do it with me. So we were in class together. And I'm not like the smartest. I wasn't like the best student or anything. It was when we started doing ride time and actually rode with Marty, then that I realized I was like, you know what, this is actually really fun. Like, I think this is what I want to do.
Wow.
And then I think
Was this the Indiana days? Or
yeah,
really?
It was in Maryville,
you went
Indiana.
all the way to Indiana?
I drove all the way to Maryville, Indiana. Because I did that was my first ride time with him. And then I did one with Superior up like in Skokie, or was it Medex? I think it was Medex. And it was different because it's a private versus when we did 911 calls in Maryville. But it was still like, I got to be in an ambulance. They were going lights and sirens. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then ever since then, I'm just like, this is what I want to do. And yeah, I thank you and Marty for like just having enthusiasm teaching the class, because I feel like if it were an instructor that didn't have that enthusiasm, I wouldn't have it either. I kind of like, I feel like I feed off of like my instructors.
Well, I mean, you become who you surround yourself with in a way. And so before going too deep, for anyone listening that isn't aware of Russ or who Russ is a firefighter paramedic for Chicago Fire Department. But you're on the ambulance side, so you're a single role medic at the moment.
Correct.
But you are a firefighter medic at other places, at other fire departments as well. And so we relish that in the sense of we have students that desire this path for themselves, and we feel very lucky to have someone they can look up to. And Russ started teaching with us, was it 2020? Like through
It was a little bit at the tail end of COVID. Well, tail end, but you know.
No, it wasn't the beginning of, because we were still at UIC.
That's right.
Where through an ambulance company, you would come on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's right. And we were still, my partner and I were still like kind of teaching at Lifeline, and then we were invited to teach with UIC, but on the clock, which was weird. I had no idea.
We couldn't pay you, so yeah. I'm glad you got paid.
Yeah, so it was. I didn't know what the motive was behind it. I didn't know if we were there to sell our company. You know,
they didn't share that with
we
you?
were coming uniform.
Well, you're not necessarily selling the company, but people end up going to companies where they feel closest to, and so if people got to know representatives of a certain company, then it's like, yeah, I want to work with Russ.
Oh, I see.
That's the whole backdoor move, you know.
Okay.
But that being said, you also continued to teach with us afterwards.
Right.
What is it? What is it about teaching? Because this is the whole Meet Your Instructor series. Like, why? What does it do for you in that sense?
Like for me, like again, like for me, I feel like the reason why I continued in EMS was because I had good instructors, like on the EMT side, on the medic side.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me teaching, I want to also put forth that enthusiasm into EMS with the new students. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's nice to have an instructor that believes in what they do. And then also, like, again, like there's a lot of stuff that we do in terms of like the hands-on that I don't do every day on the ambulance. Mm-hmm. But, you know, like if you ask me to sling and swath, I can do that all day.
Mm-hmm. So there's this Con Ed component to it.
Correct.
And how many years have you been in it in total? EMT and medic by now? So
I was an EMT since because I finished the class in 2016. Then? Yeah, 2017. And then what
is that, 8-ish?
I think so,
total?
Yeah.
And how many years or how long did it take for you to feel ready enough for paramedic school or you know, this desire to become a paramedic?
So I remember taking the exam to go to St. Francis in 2018, and I was barely a medic. I was like a baby.
You were barely
an EMT.
An EMT, so
but
a
like,
year.
Right, and barely.
Were you working full time at that point?
Correct.
So full time. When did you feel accustomed to, as an EMT, kind of like the day-to-day stuff?
I think as soon as I started driving, maybe like 3-4 months.
Nice, that's fast.
It's because we just had like a routine, you know?
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? Someone who has described themselves as not the best student, not as studious, but it's a common reflection we hear in the EMS world of like, I in traditional school wasn't the best student,
right.
But this stuff, like I'm killing it.
Yeah, it was nice to be on the privates. I think there is merit to starting on the privates because it does teach you a bedside manner. It teaches you, you know, just how to write a report because you're not sitting there like, oh my God, we have to go to emergency room. We're going to dialysis. So you can take your time. You can learn good patient care. Just talking to your patients or just seeing different medical diagnoses, because like you'd get the face sheet and they have this whole list of, you know, history, medications and stuff. So it helps you learn about all that. It's good. And then, but there's a certain point where you probably felt it because you were on the privates as well. There's that comfort, and it's like
complacency,
right? And I'm like, you know what, I need to challenge myself, and that's when because in 2018 I took the exam, and you know they had the whole panel. It was like it was like The Voice, but not as fun.
How many people were on that panel?
Ooh, there was a lot at the time.
And who comprised it?
There was
like medical directors, nurses, administrators, paramedics.
From what I remember, there was Sarah. She's the head instructor. There was Cody. He's head instructor for like the hands-on stuff. They did have the medical director. It wasn't the same from when I applied again. And then maybe like 2 paramedics were probably like preceptors.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember them when I did it again. But it was a pretty intimidating panel. And they basically said that I knew my stuff, but I didn't have the confidence because, you know, they watch you during the hands-on portion of the exam. And I feel like I was very hesitant because, you know, I've never done anything like that. Like I've never even had like a critical call because they would
Prior
ask
to
me,
that, yeah.
They're like, what's your, you know, an emergency call? And I'm just like,
but they like looking back, they should know that, right? A lot of their students are coming from the IFT world.
Correct.
And so I guess looking back, like, is there anything else you could have done to prepare you for, performing?
I could have argued maybe, like, I know I don't have the experience or the confidence right now. However, like during my 10 months in paramedic school, I'll still be working as an EMT. So something that Sarah had said, I believe it was Sarah, she's like, you don't know what you don't know yet. And I was like,
it's scary.
Yeah. And, I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll take the L. And then I applied again in 2021. I wasn't the COVID class. I was the class after.
That's a significant amount of time.
Yeah. I was, again, like, I feel like I fall, and when I get demotivated, it kind of just, I need something to, like, push that again.
But you just continued working as an EMT?
Correct. I was still at the private. I think it might have been COVID that kind of pushed me, because, we got a lot of the patients that were on vents if I was working one-on-one with a medic, or just like really sick patients. And as an EMT, it's good to be an EMT, because you start that process of the emergency stuff, but there's so much more after.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I didn't have that knowledge, like, it kind of like, you know what, maybe I should try again.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and I got in finally.
Were you surrounded by people in medic school amongst those 3 years?
Yeah, there was a few people
years,
at St. Francis, because we were up north, but then we also had a good handful that the Malcolm students. I don't think we had anyone else going anywhere else. It was pretty much St. Francis or Malcolm, at least with that company.
And you look at these people and you're like, I could totally do this.
Yeah.
I just got to get in.
Pretty much. And they were really supportive, like they wouldn't like be mean, like, oh, you're going to be a EMT, like a career EMT, like they were nice about it. Like, like, hey, applications are dropping again. You should try, you're a really good EMT. And that helps, like, to have that support on, like, the work side. Even like my friends who aren't really in EMS or any medical field, they would always, like, try to ask, what's up and all that, and try to push you to, why don't you be a paramedic? And I'm just like, maybe.
Did you consider any other programs?
I was looking into Malcolm for a little bit, but because, like, I think it was also like a location thing, because I was already working up north, like up in Toohey, and then St. Francis was like Evanston, which is not too far away. So I'm like, oh, so if I want to work a shift and then go to, do a clinical after, it's not that bad.
So what, like Lutheran and St. Francis?
Yeah, oh yeah, there was Lutheran too. I didn't know.
It's like, a small class,
We
though.
didn't have a lot of Lutheran students from what I remember. But yeah, it was really fun. Like, medic school was one of the hardest, like, it was a very hard experience, but it was good, because you do that trauma bonding. So, we'd be crying before class and after exams and stuff, and then we'd be fine. There were a few where I had to do remediation, because, like I said, I'm not the best I'm not the best student or anything, but with the instructors, the preceptors, they were always, like, really good. Like, they didn't, like, spoon feed you, but they were there to support you. They wanted to see what you were doing wrong and why, and then just,
If anything, that's a strength to have, because inevitably there will be people that are not as studious in our class, and you probably have come up with tips and tricks to help yourself that might be helpful to them, right? So I guess what was the most helpful in getting you through medic school? Was it a study buddy? Was it the instructors? Like, what made it what cemented it for you? Was it like, so let's say for our class, like, one student said that starting their clinicals early and being able to see medical conditions and signs and symptoms on a real patient early, despite not knowing all the assessments, at that time, really helped the following lectures feel more real.
I think I do like the idea of going to like clinicals, like, early, or doing all of that on time, because that's what I did. I was a planner girl, so I planned out, like, everything as soon as she opened up, like the clinical side. I think
Would you study solo or with a group or one other person?
I was better studying solo, because, like, I feel like, because I'd gone to college, right? And sometimes the study groups were just not productive.
Anything more than 3 is kind of unproductive. It just becomes a chit chat gossip session.
And I already knew, like, especially with like us in EMS, we always want to tell our war stories and all that stuff. And I just found studying by myself was the best.
Yeah.
And I fell into the like studying for hours and then like being like, what am I doing? And then I remember you just mentioning to the students, like, there was one of the runner-up valedictorians saying, like, study in like bite-sized sessions. I'm like, man, that would have really helped in medic school, because I would be sitting there like until like the words started to jumble, and I'm like, I don't think this is happening right now.
But did you find yourself studying on the job?
No, it was kind of hard to maybe like rewriting notes, but in terms of like studying like new material for the new lecture, I had to like literally like sit and just like read. Like I know sometimes like the reading is kind of dry, but it was more like active reading. Like they would have the objectives, and which was part of our assignments, and looking for the answers like in the text. I felt like I was kind of learning in that sense, instead of just reading blocks of text. Like I was actively looking for things to answer the questions for the objective, so that kind of helped. And just I think also like finding the topics that I knew I was comfortable with. Like trauma's decent. I know I'm not really good at endocrine, so that was one of like my worst. I think that was the only exam I got.
What seemed to be most helpful? Was it Khan Academy videos? Like what are helpful?
Oh, that was helpful in college, but just rewriting notes for me, because I feel like I'm a very like, I like to write. So like during lecture, when the instructor's talking, I'm like jotting down all these notes, and then like afterwards.
And are you taking notes on what is on the screen or what they're saying?
No, mostly what they're saying, because she wouldn't put like, I feel like she wouldn't put like too much like text. She wanted mostly for you to like listen, and so like I'm jotting down like things that I don't remember from the reading, or her just like just saying. Sometimes she'd say things from her own experience, which is like really helpful, because like sometimes you won't find everything in the book, right?
No.
So I'd write that down, and then when I get home, or even if I had like usually when I got home, all of the notes that I would make, which was like a jumble of nothing, I would just make it nice and neat, so it's like, so it makes sense now. So
seeing it again, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So it was like organized, like it was my organized thoughts versus like the raw material that was coming out from lecture.
And upon graduation, what were some next steps? Like, were you planning on applying to certain places, or were you going to stick around at the IFT for a little bit?
I was actually planning on staying at the private I was at, because so during medic school we got to ride with whatever company we were currently working with, which was fine, because the company I was with, we were contracted to nursing homes, so we did their regular dialysis and appointments and stuff, but we also ran their ER calls, and when they were sick, they were very sick, so it was interesting to see all of these sick people. We were able to do leads. They were on vents, so it was a good experience. And a lot of my preceptors were like a lot older, and they had worked sometimes at departments during the times where EMS and fire were not together. And so they would tell me all of this stuff about like, it was pretty much bad mouthing like the fire department, saying that we were not welcomed in like their firehouses. We would eat outside, we would sleep in the ambulance. We were just not, it was just not like a thing back then for them to be combined.
Yeah. And
so like in the back of my head, I was like, I would never work for the fire department unless it's Chicago, because you can be separate. You could just be a
single role medic.
And I think when I started picking up like more shifts as a medic for the private, it kind of just like dawned on me that I still felt that complacency, and I didn't feel like I was
you weren't
challenging
using all
myself.
your skills.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, I was doing IVs, because again, like these people were very sick coming out of these nursing homes, but I just still I didn't feel that uncomfortableness that I feel like you would get when you're challenging yourself. So kind of just on a whim, I went into like the group chat for medic school, and I was like, who's at a department that they like? Because I was still like nervous, like I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not welcome. And I had a classmate that was like, yeah, it's a pretty good department, but it was like very rural. It took me like an hour and a half to get there every 3 days, but they were the nicest people, especially as a new medic, and then working one-on-one with an EMT. Like, you know, like I was so like this was like way outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But the lieutenants, the officers, they were also like patient with me. They were also medics, and I'm sure a lot of them have also worked at the time where like
it was separate, or
correct.
it was like not as cohesive.
Right, because a lot of them came from the privates. There were maybe a few who always started at a department, or maybe just worked as a tech, and then as soon as they were able to get on the department, they were able to do that. But a lot of them did start off on the privates, so I feel like that probably spurred them to not treat the medics badly, because they were also medics. So it was really nice. And then they put me through Fire Academy, and I was kind of hesitant about it, because like, again, it was not in my plan to do so. I always just wanted to be a medic. I didn't really care for the fire side, but when I went through it, I can I swear?
Yeah, I can swear.
I worked my ass off to get, you know, that certification. Like I was the only girl. I was a bit older than everyone. Everyone was in like their early mid-20s, and I turned 30 maybe towards the end.
You were
of
the only
academy.
girl.
Correct. I thought there was gonna be more. Like there was.
It's what would you think? Like, say the ratio is in the private side. Is it like 60-40 male female?
I feel like it was even. That's why I was surprised that
okay.
I was the only girl.
And then when you made it into the fire side, I mean, did it even dawn on you before going into the academy, into the fire academy?
I had a classmate, or one of my coworkers was in academy right before me, because they're like, oh, we'll send you when he graduates. I'm like, cool. And I was like, do you have girls in your class? He's like, yeah, I have like 3 or 4. I was like, okay, that's good. And then I asked the other kids who went to Elgin Community, their fire academy. They're like, yeah, we had a good amount of girls. And I came super early to Romeoville. I made a spot just for the other girl that would be there, and it was just me. Oh my goodness. But like, despite that, the guys were like really nice, really supportive. I think I was the smallest one there. Like, they would make fun, because they're like, oh, this is definitely your jacket, you know, when we'd like, you know, take our stuff off to drink water, take a break. They were really supportive. There's a lot of stuff that like you kind of like learn about yourself when you're, again, it was more like trauma bonding again. I'm sure it wasn't trauma for them, it was trauma for me. When you're on the nozzle, it's pretty much like an easy like roll, because you know, you're not really pulling. Everyone behind you is feeding you the hose, right? And so like I was able to do that, and you know what, I was like, this is fine. But then I was like, I need to challenge myself. I need to be the second or the third person, or the person pulling that hose up the stairs. And
that's heavy.
I did it, and I was like, you know,
and that's even before it's charged.
Correct.
Oh wow.
And then we didn't really do a lot of there wasn't like a lot of like stair running at the academy I went to, but there were definitely times where we would simulate. Okay, you start off on in a basement, and then you know you're feeding the line going up or going down, and it was hard work. But like, you know, I was like, I don't want to take the easy way. I want to be able to challenge myself.
I was going to ask, like, at what point in the academy did you start to really care about the work? Because I think you're not alone in that like most people in this class really don't care to run into burning buildings. And so when did you start caring?
I feel like they really, like, even the first day they set it up really well. They had all these speakers talking to us about you know, how they got into fire and the importance of it, the history behind it. And then I started to respect it more, because it's not like, people don't even think about it. Like, I didn't even think about like the people on the people on the engines, the people on the trucks, and I'm just like, all right, that's their job.
And that's despite being already a medic.
Correct. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm on the ambulance, sometimes they're on the engine, and it didn't like faze me. And then actually being there and like seeing like, and some of these kids had been working with the department, but like they weren't able to go into buildings and stuff. They're just like they're cadets, and they've already had all of this experience. And I think that drive of wanting to match that energy and just like be at the same level of them, so I wouldn't be at the back of the pack. I didn't want them to have to worry about me, because we were kind of divided into, I forgot how, like platoons or like units.
Yeah.
So like, of course, in my unit, it was like the three like biggest and most experienced guys. I'm like, damn, and I have to like catch up to them. But if anything, again, like it forced me to get out of my comfort zone again and to be better with like doing like the hands-on stuff, going on the roof and being comfortable with that. I'm not afraid of heights, but when I was on the roof, I was like, you know what? That's kind of a high
that's a high fall. That's a high drop.
And they were, again, the instructors there were amazing. They were really nice. They're like, just like walk up and down, just get used to the feeling of being up here. And I'm like, okay. And then once that settled in, they're like, all right, now like just whack it. Like,
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. With the physicality of being a firefighter, you know, how, like, I'm sure as a female, it's like, is it, you feel like you have to, there's a chip on your shoulder of like having to prove yourself. And so like, if any females were like worried about trying to keep up with their male counterparts, like, one, how do you get over that mental hurdle? And two, is it simply just getting stronger? Like, what was it for you?
So for me, it was like, I needed to be stronger, because for me, I need to be able to do the same things that these guys can do. They were bigger, they were stronger than me, they were younger than me. So they had that to their advantage. So when I wasn't at academy or when I wasn't working, I would work out on the side. I would run. I would try to build my endurance, because like the air packs that we're on, I think we were only on like 30-minute bottles. So if you gassed out, your whole team had to come out, because they're not going to leave without you, you know? And, you know, so there was that. And then like for me being like to take other roles, that was probably just like a me thing. Like I just wanted to challenge myself and tell myself that I can do it. I can do everything that these people can do, these boys can do. But there was also something that my lieutenant had told me, because I was telling him about all of my insecurities about that. And he's like, you don't have to be good at every single thing. Like, find something that you're good at, play your strengths, because not everyone's going to be. He's like, if I need someone to break down the wall, he's like, not to offend you, but I'm not going to ask you. Maybe once we break the wall and there's just like, you know, like the little space between studs, I know you can fit through it. I'll have you do that, because that'll be your strength. But like, it's good to know what you're good at and then just going with that. But I also don't think it's bad to challenge yourself and you know, so I was like, you know what, I can do that, because I've done it.
Yeah. Well, it's very cool that you were met with a welcoming kind of culture. And like, speaking on like culture, how, and this is just, I don't know if this is something like a skill that can be learned, but like, how do you become like less offended? Like some firehouse culture can be crass and can be offensive to certain people, and you know, for lack of a better term, some girls can just hang. And like, how was there a point where you're like, damn, I don't like the way they're talking about it? It's not, and it doesn't have to necessarily be about you, but just about maybe women in general or just other people in general, and in a way that could be their form of venting, and just relieving the pressure from maybe a stressful call or something. But like, was there something like, was there ever a hurdle for you to like become accustomed to how language is conveyed and culture is conveyed in a firehouse setting? And this is all with the backdrop of how much I admired and loved my time at a firehouse. But when I was there wasn't a single female, and every bathroom could have been males. Like, that's the pooping bathroom and that's the peeing bathroom. And that's fun, right? But like how much of your how many of your habits are you going to have to change when there is a female in the space? Right? Like how many guys have to hold their tongue because they don't want to offend someone? And you don't want them to, you know, have to hold their tongue either. It's just
Correct.
like, be free to be yourself. Like, I am not offended. Like,
I feel like there have been conversations where I'm like, okay, well, this is not, I'm not going to benefit from this. So I would walk away. It's not like, and I wouldn't take offense to it. It was just like, you know, this, like, I'm not going to have anything to say to contribute to the conversation. And so, like, you know, I would walk away, and I didn't, like, I would tell them, I'm like, it's like, it's just not me, you know? Sometimes I would just play along, especially if we're eating. I'm like, well, I'm still eating. I'm like,
sure.
But I think maybe I just like came from like a really good, fire department when I first started. So maybe there was an instance where there might have been a comment about like me driving, because they, since I was already a firefighter, they wanted to get me to learning how to pump and to learning how to drive the engine. And there may have been a comment about, you know, being not only a female, but Asian. And
oh my gosh.
it was like kind of an offhand thing. And I knew it wasn't like malicious. It was just, you know, like maybe just like a side joke. But I've learned that it didn't sit, if something doesn't sit well with me, you know, I have to say something, you know. I'm just like, you know, like that's not nice to say or something. Yeah. It wasn't like a big deal. I said I didn't want to like go to HR or anything, but it's like, you know, just be cognizant about what you say, because like for me, it's always in the back of my head, you know, like even driving the ambulance when I was still working on the privates, because I'm like, you know, like one accident, they'll be like, of course she was in an accident, you know, like that kind of stuff. So I felt I had to put myself at like a higher standard, because I didn't want like that stereotype, you know, following me, or, you know, just like reinforcing that stereotype for people.
That's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And sometimes when you're experiencing that much pressure, you sometimes fail because of that pressure. And so it's like remembering, it's like, I don't know, it's a lot of things to think of. Yeah. To remember.
At this, like having started at Chicago, I feel like I'm just not at the firehouse as often enough to like, you know, be in that situation where they're having conversations, and that would be like uncomfortable.
Does it
for
almost
me.
Feel like you're back on the privates in the sense like you're just, because you're living out of an ambulance now?
Kind of, but like the calls are just different, so it's nice. Like. And then we still go to like the nursing homes, and I'm just like, back at it.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I can see sepsis a mile away.
Yeah.
So it's like there was maybe, and like again, not to like talk bad about the fire department in Chicago. I know each house is different. There was one house I was at. We were on a call, maybe in 30 minutes before we were getting off, and I came back to, you know, put my bedding away, because I was sleeping on the couch, because it's like right there in front of the ambulance, because I knew we'd get calls overnight, and my bedding was on the floor, and I was so sad. Like someone just threw my bedding on the floor, and they didn't even like replace it with like their own bedding. It was just like they just saw my stuff and was just like, screw this.
Do you share quarters with firefighters, or was it another medic?
We have like a bunk room, but then there's like that common area with like the couches, and that's where I would sleep. I just didn't like the bunk because I didn't trust myself to go down the stairs at like 2 a.m. The other medic, she slept on the app floor. There was like a recliner there, so I knew obviously it wasn't her. But like that was kind of like sad, because I've never experienced something like that. I don't know if it was like towards me, or if they were just like, they just hated Hello Kitty and they just like threw my bedding. But like I was on the fence about, like, I went to the group chat. I was like, what do I do? And they're like, you know, you could say something. I don't know who it was. And it was around that time where the firefighters were getting off and then the new people were getting on. So I didn't even know which shift it was. So I'm like, you know, just forget it. Like, if it happens again, I'll say something. But like, I mean, maybe someone just had a rough shift or whatever. Yeah. But in terms of like conversation, I don't think there's ever been like really any issues with like that. I know there are some like women medics or firefighters that kind of like, they try to have that like that
machismo.
Yeah. To
is it to compensate, or
probably?
I mean, but some people are just, you like that too,
right?
Yeah.
But sometimes they'd like talk to me in a different tone, and I'm just like, you don't have to front with them, you know. Like I can still be girly and be on the fire department. I can still be girly and still be a firefighter. So like that's why I don't know. I like going to like these trade fairs and having all my pink stuff. Or when we do like at my last department, we would do all like the fire stuff, and I had like a pink hood and all this stuff. And they're like, "Oh, pink." I'm like, I'm still a girl, you know. Yeah. So it's nice for that.
I mean, do you know of any people that want to get on that feel like there's no room for them?
I haven't had that experience. No, there were some people who would ask. I did have a friend who she wasn't happy at her department, and she was kind of like envious because she's like, I'd see all your posts, or when we go out, you're always talking of how happy you are. And I guess like her department was not nice to her, in terms of like welcoming her as a woman. She wasn't a firefighter, but I don't know if it was the fact that she was a medic and her department was still kind of, like they had that rift, or, but it just made me sad, because I'm like, I wish there was that welcoming presence with all departments. But I don't think there's been anyone that was like on the fence about, like, would it be okay if I was a female firefighter?
Yeah. I know. I mean, you want to say it's just like, as long as you can do the job,
right?
Like it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right?
Like it's one thing to be. You don't want to be spoon fed. You don't want to just be given the certificate. You want to actually like work for it. And at least the academy I went to, they definitely made you work for it. But again, like even with like medic school, it was a good experience. It was a hard experience, but it was good. I wouldn't do it again, but that's probably why.
You wouldn't do it again? Where would you be without it? What do you mean you wouldn't do it again?
like if I had to like lose my, I don't know how the
you would
certs
give it
go.
up?
No, I wouldn't, because
okay.
That's why I still want to work. But like, if I were to like let it lapse, and then they're like, all you have to do is just go through academy again, I'll be like, you know what, I did it already. Like, same with medic school. Like, if I were to lose my license, if I were to let it lapse over something, I'm not sure if I would like do it again, because it was such like a.
What else would you do?
I don't know. That's the thing. I'm just like, it was such a hard time. Something would have to motivate me so much that I was like, you know what? Let's see Sarah and Cody again at St. Francis. But again, like you're right. Like I think this is the best job for me. I go to work, I clock in, and I'm super happy to be there. I look forward to my shifts, because I'm just like, oh, like, am I going to be a medic today, or am I just going to transport? It's fun regardless, because like there's a lot of like different characters. I'm down south and sometimes southeast, so there's a lot of different characters, a lot of different situations. So it builds that experience. But yeah, like if I couldn't do this, I don't know what I would do. I've tried the clinical side. I worked at a specialty clinic, and working like with the doctors was really nice, but it just wasn't the same as working on an ambulance. And I don't want to say being my own boss, but like, your protocol, so you can pretty much do whatever is on your protocol. So it's nice to not have to, like ask permission for a lot of stuff, just like, advice for med control and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, before you got on the city, it's like, what were you contemplating the next steps? For you would have been like, would it be the same department because you liked it so much? Would it be another department with more pay, perhaps, or like back to medical school? Like what? So
what Chicago was always my end goal.
Oh,
and like I've born and raised in the city. I love it. I wanted to work for the city. I did like the fact that you could be a single role medic. I never really cared to, even as a firefighter. I just know I'm most suited for the medic side. I love being on the ambulance. So for me to cross over to be a firefighter paramedic for the city, I don't think it would sit right with me, because I know I like being on the ambulance. I like transporting.
So if given the opportunity, you wouldn't lateral. You say that now. You say that now. Well, let's revisit this in a couple of years.
Yeah, right. No, I just wouldn't. Like I really do love being on the fire side. And I know when I was writing, the fire paramedics would be like, I was on the ambulance for a long time, but it's just a lot of work. You're really tired. And, I would ask them, I was like, do you regret ever, switching? And they're like, no, like I love being on the engine. You can still do all of like the patient care. You just don't transport. And I'm just like, I don't know. I kind of like that part too. Giving report to doctors and then, you're like, they have a left side axis deviation. And then the doctor's like, okay. But like I like that, it's what I'm used to, especially when I worked in the rural and I was both, like just being able to do that. I wish there was like a rotation with like but then I wouldn't be a single role medic, so never mind.
Wow.
There was a time where I didn't even wait that long for the city, but I'm just like impatient. I'm like, I mean, if like given if the opportunity were to stay at the rural department I was with, I would have stayed with them. Like if Chicago just never opened up again. Because when I first started there, they were contract with PSI, and then they became a full-time department. So I was like, you guys are on your way up. Like I wouldn't leave if it weren't for Chicago. So that was the only reason. I didn't really feel like going to a different department because it was pretty good where I was at. Because
once you got your fire, then you have your medic. It's like all these doors are open.
Right.
You know, it's like where does Russ want to go now?
The only thing I would have needed to do was the CPAT, but I'm sure with like training.
Wait, despite already having your fire,
yes,
like you need the CPAT again.
Because I didn't do the CPAT going into Fire Academy. I don't know if there are other academies that need you to do it, but I never did.
Oh, and then regardless of you having it, if you wanted to apply to another fire department, you needed your CPAT?
Correct. And I think that only lasts like a year
because it's just
or something.
it's an ability test rather than the Fire Academy.
Right. So like my cert of being like a firefighter is like they're like, okay, yeah, but you still need the CPAT.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, I learned something new today.
Fun.
For Marty, getting his fire was an excuse to practice medicine. Right, he never thought he'd get into the fire side.
Oh.
And he saw that it's an excuse to get on a fire department or stay on a fire department and to practice paramedicine.
I see. I didn't know that. I didn't even know he was a firefighter.
Yeah, Central Sickney.
Oh, because you could do both, right?
Yeah.
Do they rotate? Like.
I think they rotate.
Okay, so like one day you could be on the engine, one day you could be on the ambulance.
I think so.
I have a classmate from medic school that's like, you should apply to Central. And then John's also there too.
John, Alec, Nick Chevas.
Right.
We have like 4 instructors at CS.
That's right.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I
So as of now, the idea is to just climb the ambulance side.
Correct. So hopefully when you interview me again, I'll be a field chief. I'll drive in with my buggy.
Oh wow.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. We recently had a field chief here. Not on the podcast, but he took our ACLS course.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
And then another student who was referred by you, actually.
Really? Because I posted on Snap, so I was like, let's see if any, and my academy for CFD,
cool.
The group chat. I was like, if anyone needs your ACLS or PALS, because we needed it to get into academy, but we don't need it. We could let it lapse, but
Sure.
I still like having it. So, whenever my expiration date comes up, and then you guys have another class, I'll probably.
So, with the IFT side, you felt ready after about 6 months of like day-to-day stuff. Now on the municipality side, like how especially, and it's like this different culture of like the city side. Do you feel like you're getting like you're a little over a year into it? Like, are you getting your getting used to it? I
am, but I also know that there's going to be situations where I have no idea what to do. Because I think I was just a week on, and I had like the most traumatic call with like peds, and there was like, shooting, and I kind of just like froze. And if I were to do it again, there would be a lot of stuff that I would do differently, because like that was just the first time I've ever seen, like a traumatic call like that. And then I know there are things that I haven't seen yet, because I'm just the driver. I'm just the fire paramedic, the person who drives, and then the PIC is the one who sits in the right seat. They do all the paperwork and everything. And if there's any like mass casualty incidents and we're the first ones on scene, the PIC basically runs the show. They have to call for like a plan, which means like 5 ambulances, 10 ambulances, things like that. They have to, triage everyone. And like now, if like, let's say my next duty day, if they have me act up as PIC, would I be able to do it? I'm going to struggle. I've at least experienced one plan. It was like a car accident with the PIC I was with. So like I kind of know like the basics of it, but I feel like I would still need maybe another half year to be able to be comfortable with that.
I mean, do those opportunities come when the PICs themselves get promoted?
Not really.
So do those opportunities not come often then?
No, not really.
And that's wild. I used to live with someone that passed it up several times because he didn't feel ready.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, they had a PIC class, I think, as when we were leaving academy, so back in June. We couldn't apply, obviously. But I feel like they're set with their PICs right now. They might do another one in another half year, depending on like if they have like people moving up to like ambulance commander and they need more PICs, or people who are just quitting, or not quitting, like retiring. Yeah. But
not to get too political, but like you would hear grumblings about an not having an updated contract for Union 2, but does that include the medics as well, or just the fire side? Okay, so it's both.
Correct.
And so like, I don't know if you heard or if they talked about these things in the academy, but like, what kind of sentiment does that like, or precedent does that set as you're like trying to get excited to like enter this?
Well, they would always make like offhand because the local 2 would come, talk to us about stuff. They would give us like their t-shirts and stuff. And it sucks because like I don't want to say this is my first like big girl job, because we didn't have a union for like my last job either. So like I'm trying to like understand the workings of like what a union is even, and then like how they do the contract. Is it every 4 years? Is it every 6 years? What exactly are they trying to negotiate? But they would make their comments like if they ever agree on a contract, and then we're just like, what do they mean by that? and I'm just like, hopefully they do. Good luck. The girl I'm working with currently, because I'm just kind of like floating, she's one of the union stewards, and she had said back in the middle of January, if they don't come to an agreement, they're going to go into arbitration. And I was like, what is all
so like
of
a back
this?
and forth in a room
with like a lawyer instead of like
instead of the union rep?
Yeah, there's like the union rep, and then the city, and then a lawyer, which is like the arbiter. And they were talking about this, and I'm just like, I can't be on my phone Googling because it's like the morning meeting. I was like, the only arbiter I know is from Halo 2, and it's an alien. So I don't think any of my background knowledge is going to help me with this. Oh my goodness. So it was nice to actually like to discuss with like my classmates who know I'm not really savvy with all of this stuff at University of Chicago. So I'm just like, okay, so this is what was told. What does it mean? And so they were able to break it down. So I'm like, okay, that's a lot. That makes more sense.
That is a lot. I don't know. But like overall, does the sentiment? Do you even have time to think about things like that, or is the day-to-day so busy that like you can't even think about it?
It's not super busy. Like I feel like and I was on busy ambulances. I think in academy they really they're like, you're not gonna have any time to sleep, to eat, to use the bathroom. Okay. And then when we get in there, I'm like, sometimes I have time to use the bathroom. It's not as bad,
That's good, yeah.
They're like, why are you making your bed? You don't have time, like things like that. But we've had time to sleep. Okay. There's some nights where it's not as bad. So in terms of like thinking about the contract, I feel like I just need to be a better like member,
more informed. Yeah.
Correct. I need to go to these union meetings and just be more proactive about that, because like it's my money at the end of the day. Even people who have already retired, the pensioners, like they still have a say in the union. So
very interesting.
So I'm like, you know what? I should be better while I'm still here, and then because I have 20 years to go, right? So. I should be more informed about stuff that's going on, because then what's the point of like complaining about it if I wasn't even there to
you have nothing to complain about if you didn't inform yourself and make a decision,
right?
So how many patients would you average in a day then, or like per hour?
It depends. So I'm on ambulance 38 just temporarily. I think we average about like 15 calls a day. When I was on ambulance 24 when I first started, and we were busy, but it was nice. It makes the day go by so fast. Like I would text my boyfriend good morning, and then it was already like night. But when I was on ambulance 24, I think we did about like I think there was a time where we did like 30 calls, but it's it's also like, refusals as well. Sometimes the refusals will take a lot because they're just, people would be on the fence with like, should I go to the hospital? And you're sitting there like I personally don't like refusals.
I'm leaving in 10 seconds.
Yeah, I personally don't like refusals. I'm like, I'm already here. Like I always recommend going to the hospital. Like, you obviously called because you felt like this was an emergency, right? Let's go. But then to sit there and then they're just like, I'm feeling fine, bye. And I'm just like, what am I doing? But yeah, like I remember there was this maybe 1 or 2 days we did like 30 calls, because he would tell me sometimes it didn't feel like 30 calls though, because of a few of the refusals, or we'll go there and there's no patient found because they got up and walked away. But it's truly not that bad. Like, maybe like overnight, a lot of people are like, you know what, I don't care if we run all day as long as I'm able to sleep during the night. And there would be times where I'd get like slightly annoyed if it's 2 a.m. and it's not quite an emergency, but like you tell the students like this is their emergency, so you treat it as such. But yeah, like it's fun. I really do love being on the city. Like,
I'm glad it has met, or if not exceeded, your expectations. That's awesome.
I think everything was just better than Academy. I did not care for Academy. Like, I was having a rough time because they're like, even though I had gone through Fire Academy,
physically or mentally or
I think
emotionally, like what was tough about it?
Compared to Fire Academy, it was like physically, I wasn't at the back of the pack anymore, so it was nice. And even age-wise, like I was pretty much in the middle. We had like people in their early 20s. I think we had a few people like in their late 30s or 40s.
There's no limit, right, for the ambulance side.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not at the back of the pack
Nice.
this time, and I could actually like, I could go at my own pace, but also like push myself. So it was, and I didn't have to have like, I didn't feel like the instructors were like
had their eyes on you. Yeah. Okay.
But I think it was just the idea of like, because we were already medics, I feel like they still needed to discipline us on anything else. So if that makes sense, like, because we already knew our stuff, we just needed to alter our knowledge from like wherever private,
the Chicago way,
right? The Chicago way, and then like our protocols in Region 11, which is, I don't want to say limiting, because I understand where they're coming from when they don't have certain medications. Like, we don't have ketamine in Chicago, but I had at Region 9, because we're pretty much 5-10 minutes away from the nearest hospital. I was actually surprised. I think it was like maybe a month into me being in Chicago, they introduced TXA into the region.
Wow.
So when we have
into 11?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's great. And like, so we actually used it the first time we had like a shooting, and I was able to give TXA. I was like, this is great. Wow. And the firefighters were like, okay.
Nerd.
Yeah, basically. I'm like, no, this is awesome. Because I thought I would never be there to experience a medication like that being introduced. So when they bring ketamine back, it's going to be great.
I was going to say, like, if you're inundated with that call volume, like 30 in 24 hours, is that because you feel the pressure from above to crank out these calls? But if so, like, how meaningful is each call? Like, do you feel like you have to sacrifice your care to keep going with these calls? So
I noticed there is a difference between the patient care that I gave when I was at the rural, and again, we would average maybe like 5 calls a day sometimes. So it's more like, I don't want to say load and go, but we would definitely do a lot of our stuff in the ambulance, because sometimes the scene just really isn't safe, and it's not their fault. It's like like you would notice that they're heating the apartment with like the oven, and I'm just like, I'm not really comfortable being here. Or you just notice like a lot of like roaches, and again, you don't want all of that stuff on your equipment, on you, so you need to bring this patient out into the ambulance. And once you do all of that, like, there's not like much to do besides like maybe doing like the in addition to the vitals, leads and IV,
in the back.
So we're still doing all of our patient care, but you're right, there is that sense where we can't be doing all of this stuff for too long. Even on the privates, like, we would be able to take our time with like our emergency calls. I would still make I would still do the pre-notification while my partner is, doing their assessment and everything, because we had that time to do so. But, in Chicago, we just don't want to like let's say I'm doing a call in my district, right? And so I'm tied up, and then another call in my district comes up. Someone from another district has to come and take my call, and you don't really want to do that. So you feel this
guilty pressure to keep hold your weight.
Right. And then, sometimes they'll be like, I had to do your call.
You feel that on fire departments too, especially if it's like multiple multiple houses.
True.
Or if, you don't want the neighboring town to come over.
Right.
Yeah, I
right.
get that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
But I feel like it's not like too bad. I'm sure other ambulances understand that, like you were on a call, like you just couldn't take it. But you don't want to, because we can look up,
you don't want to be that person.
Yeah. Like just sitting and taking their time with everything. Because you want to be able to pull your weight, like they have to run their calls in their district as well. So you don't want to take them from that.
How closely does like the field chief or an ambulance commander keep an eye on their providers who might show symptoms of burnout? Of no longer caring. I know one of the instructors at the academy, Louis Medina, would share anecdotes of that, of like when you start recognizing sometimes in yourself, but sometimes like even after you recognize it in yourself, you don't want to talk about it. Like, is it as simple as your partner checking in, or sometimes you feel like someone above needs to come in and check in? But when you no longer care about the patient, and you're like, all right, get in, let's go.
I feel like the field chief or the ambulance commanders don't. Maybe the field chief would be more
like in tune.
Correct, because they try to run at least or go to at least one call with every ambulance that's in their district. The ambulance commander might be on a different shift, but I feel like the field chief would be able to pick up like they're acting a little off, or even your partner. Like I worked with someone who every call we would get, like she'd,
just pissed off, like hate the world.
Right. And I wouldn't say anything because like, I don't like feeding into it, but also like, I'm like, let her vent, like she's been on the job for a long time, so she can vent all she wants.
Yeah.
But then afterwards she'd kind of like, hey, sorry, I was kind of like, and I'm just like, no, it's fine. Like, I understand, especially like if the call's not, again, I don't like saying it, not truly an emergency. It's like, you had all this pain all day and it's 3 a.m. and now you want to deal with it. But, I just let them vent. But in terms of like who'd be like more noticing about, stuff like that, like burnout, it would probably be the field chief, if any, because again, like they're only running one call with us, and it might and you can hear them come on the call with you.
It's like scared that your livelihood might be taken away, your ability to pay the bills might be taken away, especially if you have a family and other people that depend on you for this income. What happens when you're taken out of commission and you can't perform the job anymore because you've expressed burnout?
I'm not really sure. They do have this EAP thing.
Employee Assistance Program?
Yes. They have, they actually had me talk to this girl during academy because I was really having a hard time. And this was before I started therapy. I think that kind of made me realize that I need to go to therapy. 'Cause like, there's just, it's not just like work stresses, like there's daily stresses, like relationship stress, family stuff, and it piles on. And then you're at work, and then sometimes there's like that call or, that becomes the straw that broke the camel's back. So, and you shouldn't get to that point. I know it's available for people, but some people might not, they might not think that,
because it's connected with the department?
I've had a few people say like, I don't really trust the EAP. If you should get a therapist on your own. I did like the girl that I talked to with the EAP program. So I wouldn't mind, like if worst comes to worst, or if like, my therapist wasn't able to talk to me, or if I was still at work. Because I remember when I had that traumatic call with the PEDS patient, the EAP people did come to the hospital to talk to us. And she was really nice. This was a different person. She was like, she's like, I know you came right out of academy. I don't want you to think that you're going to get calls like this every time. And I was like, oh, because there were people that were like, that happens, you know, and it's not, it doesn't help, you know, and I'm just like, I'm going to see like kids who get shot every day. Like what? But it was nice to hear that validation that it's like, no, it's not going to happen every time. And it wasn't okay for you to have a call like this. It shouldn't happen, you know, but you know, the fact that you were able to do the call and, you know, transport the patient, you know, that's the most important thing. But yeah, so that was my experience with EAP, but I do like having like my therapist outside of the job because I can be more, I don't know, like even with people like because like there is that tie-in with work. I'm like, I don't want to talk about like the rest of my life. I just want to talk about work with people.
Small world, I know.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's
so
fair.
it was nice to have like that, or just like realize that I needed to go to therapy.
Or maybe someone that's just outside of the industry.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was nice. Venting to my parents was not.
Are they in healthcare?
No, but my dad was a first responder. He was a cop before he retired. So I would tell him about some of these calls, and then he started to open up because he wouldn't tell us about me and my sisters because you know, you don't want to tell kids about, you know, the calls that you did. But now that I'm an adult and I'm also working the streets, like he's like, yeah, I had a call like that, and it would be like the most traumatic stuff, and I'm like, oh my God. Like,
but, I wonder if he, you know, talked about it ever.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like, I know for a fact he, you know, he's kind of like old school, so they don't go to therapy. Maybe they had like an EAP, you know, within CPD, but I mean, I don't know.
It's usually their partners and peers.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to vent to your partner. You know, you do a call, and then afterwards you're like, that was pretty messed up, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, that would be our way of venting. But I really like the idea of just going to therapy. Like my friend said, like, you shouldn't have to wait until something really bad happens, because the therapist needs that baseline for you. So you should go in when you're feeling good, because it's like, okay, this is how they are. And then when something bad happens, and then there's that shift in your attitude or your mindset.
I can pick up on it.
Right. They're like, what happened? You know? So I think that it's a good thing to do, even if maybe you don't go like every week or something, but you know, you have that at the back of your head, like, you know,
it's been a minute.
Yeah.
I should go.
Or it's even like, it's good to go. It's fine to go to therapy. It's okay to go to therapy. You shouldn't have to like.
At this point, is therapy pretty accepted by insurance?
Yes. At least like my insurance is.
That's good.
They take it, but you know, the city has pretty good insurance. Even with my last department, we had a program that was kind of connected to the job, and our insurance took that too. So it's widely available, and then we have a lot of people that are really understanding about that. So they're like, okay, you're able to talk to someone, and they don't like, oh, you need to talk to someone, you know? So I think that it's more accepted now. Because I don't know if you watch like old movies, and they're like, they would just make that joke like, you need to go to therapy, like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, stigma.
Yeah. So
is there anything we haven't talked about? It's really cool to feel like you've found your kind of career path. It's hard for some people. One, to become aware of what you might want to do, and then two, to get it. And then, like, do you feel like you're just beginning, right? This is it, but this is it. Like,
right.
now I see the path that I'm on, and like I just got to keep going.
I think so. Another thing I like about Chicago EMT training, we do career fairs. We go to McCormick Place, we do their trade fair, and then if schools invite us to do their job fairs or career fairs, I like going, because I feel like even before I started like being an EMT or a firefighter, I feel like this job is kind of how do you say? Like, if you don't know someone, you don't know how to get in. Like, and I want to be able to show people that this is an option for them. Like it's a blue collar job that you don't need college for. And because I know there was a lot of like students who would come up to us and they're like, I always wanted to be a firefighter, but I never knew how to do it. And a lot of people who I talk to in academy, they have relatives on the fire department. They've had like relatives who are, you know, on the ambulance or worked, you know, as a first responder, and they know the process. I mean, besides my father being a cop, like I didn't really know anything about this. Like I didn't have someone guiding me. I pretty much had to like, okay, I'll do this and see what happens, you know? And the word is gatekeep. I feel like we shouldn't gatekeep this information. We shouldn't gatekeep this job, because like a lot of people say like, no one wants to be a firefighter anymore. I don't think anyone knows how to be a firefighter.
No, it's not necessarily gate kept, because if you meet someone in the industry, I think they're happy to share.
Okay.
But more so like, the like the marketing aspect and the access to it, like it's departments don't make it easy. Like you got to take these certain tests and you got to get sponsored to go to the academy and all that stuff. Like, yeah, you definitely, once you know someone that's doing it, the path is very visible to you. Right. And I think people are very willing to share. But I agree. I mean, I'm only doing this because I'm Marty. Like we were both pre-med at the time.
Okay.
So I agree with you in that, and I appreciate you sharing the sentiment about trade fairs. Our focus recently hasn't been at trade fairs because of how busy we are in class. But I do enjoy our time at McCormick Fair, and I appreciate you also sharing that, because sometimes you go to these trade fairs and some of these kids, like, it seems like they just don't give a shit of like being there. And I try to remember that I probably didn't give a shit at 18 either. And so, but that being said, if you reach one person, it's like, it's worth it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like I remember we went to that one school where I think there was a girl there. She was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be a firefighter. I'm a girl. And you're like, she's a girl and she's a firefighter. Yeah. And I was like, I am. So it was like nice. And I'm like, you're right. Like if I could just reach one person every trade fair we go, that's fine. That's good for me. Like when I go to these, like I feel like I'm not at work, you know, like it's even teaching, like it doesn't feel like work, because it's like, this is something I enjoy doing. And if I could just like inspire that next person to, you know, like to do this, to even just being on the ambulance instead of, you know, like being a firefighter, if they want to do both, that's great. But just going to these, like, I just want to, I know college isn't for everyone. And I feel like people don't know about this, and we should be more proactive. Like people who are on the job should be more proactive, going out and just saying what we do. I know CPFTA, is that what it is? Like they're really good about that. I guess maybe it was installed when I was in high school, but I never even. I
think even if you're CPS, it's like you still feel like you have to know someone to get into CPFTA.
Because I didn't know what it was, and like I had a classmate in academy, and we're not even too far in age. She's like, "Oh, I was in CPFTA." I was like, "I thought this was a new thing." I was like, "You're as old as I am."
Yeah, and there's limited seats too. So
right. See, so tough. If you don't get into that, then you know how do you even so. It's good to be able to...
Lots of room for improvement in the sense of like recruitment and retention. And I think there was a time when you can just rely on word of mouth, and I think culture is changing. I think we are starting to see a renaissance of emergency medicine and people interested in paramedic school and firefighting. But there was definitely a time where people were like, I don't make enough for this shit. Like I'm just gonna go to nursing. I'm gonna leave EMS altogether. I'm gonna leave healthcare altogether. And we're starting to see a rise in that demand again, which is good, but it takes time. Right.
You're right about the pay though. When I was working, when it was still like a contract department, I was making like 15. Yeah. And it was. I'm like I'm driving an hour and a half to make $15. You know, like it's.
Yeah, I left making 13, and. I was making more teaching, and I was making more money being an anesthesia tech. Right. So, you know, you make the decision to leave, and then you start teaching something you're no longer a part of, which is why I'm reliant on you guys to teach the class, and I can just ensure that everyone has a good time. But that's great. And I wonder, like, if I was called, it took 4 years for CFD to call me, and if they called me in my maybe mid-20s, I probably would be on the city right now. Yeah. But I was like nearing my 30s. And so that's interesting to hear that like you're in your third decade, and the decades get better every decade, right? Yeah. But I wonder like what it's like. I'm sure you've met people that have like remained on the ambulance side throughout their career, but like the secrets to, you know, maintaining a longevity on this physically, mentally taxing role, because, you know, we have instructors that have transitioned to the fire side due to that, right? It's just like, it's just better on my schedule, better on my personal life, better on my body.
I think you just have to know what you like about it. Like I truly like helping people, and
from
like,
from A to B, from A to Z, essentially. Well, maybe let's say A to B. Since like the only thing I would if I were to still pursue med school is like, oh, like the pre-hospital side, you don't get to diagnose and things like that. But if you are transporting, that's like, if you really love transporting, then the single role medic is probably for you, or the ambulance is for you. But if you like, you know, practicing paramedicine here and there and initiating, you know, the protocols, but you're not transporting anymore.
right. And you still like fires.
You like fires, and yeah, the call volume is going to be a lot less taxing. Yeah, that's very interesting. That you still wanted, like, this is your dream job. I mean, I'm so happy you found it, despite, and that's the thing. It's like we age like fine wine, us Asians. But yeah, there'll be a point where you're in the 40s and you're like, damn, my knees, my back.
Well, that's where like promotions come into play.
That's true.
Like I know the field chiefs have been medics for a very long time, and now they're in the buggy and they don't have to touch a patient unless they want to. Like I have a field chief. She's like, I've never done an IO. I was like, well, then you can do the IO when we have a code. And she's like, So like you can still do hands-on stuff. You just don't have to like lift these patients down 5 flights of stairs anymore.
God, I don't know if you were in the room when I told the class this, but I was last summer photographing a wedding, and like one of the wedding guests was a guy I worked with at the fire department, and I noticed a scar on the front of his neck, and he had this surgery to fuse his cervical spine because he either slipped a disc or herniated something when he was dislodging someone that was stuck between the toilet and the wall, and they were in cardiac arrest, and he felt this like thing go in his neck, and then he doesn't know if he's walking and talking, but he doesn't know if he'll ever get back on the job.
Damn.
Right? So something is like, this guy's dead, I gotta do CPR, let's get him on the ground, and then you just like make this maneuver, and you're like, something doesn't feel right.
Oh, that's the worst.
And you're like, this could be it.
I've definitely thought about that, especially when I'm bringing patients down. I'm like, if I fall right now, like I'm gonna lose this shot. Like I feel like that motivates me to not drop the patient and to keep going. Yeah, that sucks. Like we tried to like know our strengths. I told the students too when we were doing the lifting and moving. I'm like you can lift more than you think, but you also should know your boundaries. Like with patients who are 600 pounds, don't even try. Like you're not gonna do it. Yeah. And you shouldn't. But I feel like I also like teaching. So like if worse comes to worse, you'll see me more often. But have you thought about being a dispatcher? That'd be kind of fun because you have to be a medic to be a dispatcher. So I'm like, if I ever get injured, they'll hear me on the radio every day.
You have to be an EMT.
Oh, you don't have to be a medic?
Not from my understanding.
Nice. So never mind.
Yeah. We might know the same person. Like they are a medic, but I think you have to be at minimum an EMT.
Okay.
For the fire side, and then I don't think you have to be an EMT for the police side.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that'd be wild. That'd be like if you had to be a medic for the dispatchers for the 911 side or the fire side.
I'll be like, check for a pulse.
Yeah,
all right,
really.
Initiate CPR. We don't know. It's okay. I think I don't know. I've never been on that end, but I know they instruct them how to do CPR.
I would love, and I've tried striking up conversations about this with people inside OEMC, but to even just have like an observational day for like a field trip for our students, but just to see like how calls are, like the difference between call takers and dispatchers, how calls are taken and received and dispatched out. And there's even dispatchers that don't know like the grid system of the city. So you unexpectedly might find an ambulance, on the other side of the city.
Right.
Not just because of how busy it is, but because someone doesn't understand the grid system.
Like, why did they send me here? And you're just like,
yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
That would actually be really helpful because it's like they're still part of the emergency medical system.
100%.
So
yeah.
they
often get overlooked.
Yeah, they do.
When you're like, happy EMS week. Not to you, dispatchers.
Not to you, dispatchers.
Just kidding.
I think isn't that like the green line when they do like because the cops are the blue line, fire is the red line.
Oh, are they?
I think, because I'm like, what's the green line? And watch it's like the dispatchers are like, oh my goodness.
That's us. That's funny. It's a little over an hour. I think people have a good idea of what you're about. How often can people expect to see you? Because I mean, I'm sure it's hard to pass up overtime opportunities sometimes on the city.
With like in terms of like the class.
I guess a better question is, regardless of whether they see you or not, but like if they were to see you, what can they expect from you?
Like on the
in lab.
Oh, in lab.
Or you could be maybe as a preceptor too.
I mean,
yeah, because our students do ride with CFD now.
Right, that's true. I like picking up overtime, like not too much.
Yeah.
Like there definitely been times where I'm just like not this.
Right.
Then especially because I'm like, how I answer the phone is they're like, "Are you interested?" And I'm just like, "What do you have?" I just want to hear the ambulances, because if they're not. If they're really busy ambulances and I know my regular shift is on a busy ambulance, like, I don't
Oh, that makes sense.
Right.
So it's not forced.
No, I was mandatoried already once, so I'm not really sure how I fall
when
on
that
the
happens,
line.
do you go to the bottom of the, okay.
Correct.
Okay, I understand.
So I do like picking up overtime, but like I also like teaching. So I try to spend my time here as well. I love seeing the students. I did pick up a Thursday this month, so that'll be like a new group that I think it's 2 sessions on a Thursday.
Saturdays, yeah.
So like being able to see like a different group, that's going to be nice, and like hopefully make myself available to them as well, because I know people have different pathways. Maybe they're not interested so much as being a medic, but they want to be a firefighter. I want to show them that they don't there are some departments that you don't have to be, or if
you
like
don't have to be a medic.
No. Like Elmhurst, off the top of my head, I know Elmhurst still contracts with Superior,
Yeah.
They're Metro. Or if maybe money is like an issue, Aurora, I know it's a bit far out, but like fire departments like Aurora, they put their I think you maybe have to be an EMT, but they'll put them through fire academy and medic school. And it's a bit far out, but I'm sure there are other ones, and I could just ask around and stuff. Like I don't mind being that middleman for the students, because like if this is what they want to do, I'll help them. It's fine. So yeah, it's like I tried to pick up maybe like 3 or 4 shifts a month with like in terms of like lab, but like just being back is just great for me. Like I feel like it's just nice being back here.
Okay. And like, how would you describe your teaching style?
I like to teach how I learn. So I try to be, like, obviously there's that seriousness that comes, like, especially like when we were lifting, I'm like, we can joke around, but you can get hurt, going up and down the stairs, especially if we're not watching. But I also like adding in, especially like with like my experiences, like on the privates, like things that I've messed up in. I like to say that just so they don't make the same mistakes, like, I don't know, like, I'm sure I've made a lot, but in terms of like topics, like I'll do that, like, patients where they're having a breathing issue, and you're giving them oxygen and all this stuff, and then you forget that the flow rate for a nebulizer is like 6 to 8, and you do 4 because you're not paying attention, things like that. Just like double checking. Like, again, I like to teach how I learn, and I like that casual, easygoing kind of style. If they want tips on like studying, like I did like how you, again, like mentioned about the students saying the 30 minutes a day thing, because you do really lose your focus after a certain amount of time, especially with people with like a shorter attention span, or if this is like, if they feel like the text is very like heavy. But yeah, and like with doing things over and over again, repetitive like stuff, like doing the regulator over and over again, because we didn't have regulators in my the private ambulance company I was with. So like when you brought it out, I was just like, what?
Wait, what do you mean you didn't have regulators? Like the tank already had a regulator?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was like built in, and all we had to
okay.
do was just plug the. And I was like, what is that?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
like that show Temple Run.
So
with
like
the kids.
Temple Run. Wow, what a callback.
When they had to like make that whole statue.
With so you're talking about our time at UIC when you first started teaching at UIC?
Yeah, because that was the first time I saw the regulator, and I was like, I don't know.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah.
So I had to watch. I was like, it was like, I don't know if Rowan is still teaching, but I was watching her and Kim and like everyone, and I was like, okay, I gotta make sure I know what I'm doing.
Kimberly.
Yes, Kimberly.
Kimberly, yeah. Awesome. We're very lucky to have you. I appreciate you sharing and being candid, and I think a lot of people, if they're interested in the fire path or the medic path, especially if you're a female, I hope the episode has put you at ease, and Russ has laid down a path that is realistic and reasonable. It's not out of hand or out too far out of hand, out of reach. Better yet.
If I can do it, you can do it. Honestly.
Yeah. Where if someone wanted to connect, what's the best place to connect with you?
Email is probably the best. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'm pretty good with that. Yeah.
We'll drop it in the show notes. Till next time, everyone. Be well. See you later.